it's Yamina. I hope you all are doing well. Today I wanted to do a video on two stories that I just remembered recently that were extracurricular activities that I participated in when I was a teenager. So the first story took place when I was 16, living back home in New York City, and I was listening to the Hot 97 radio station at the time. That station plays hip hop and R&B and usually keeps you up to date on R&B, unlike where I live now. Anyway, so I was listening to that station and they were doing an interview with a man who was biracial. He was African American and Chinese. His mom was Chinese, his dad was African American, and he was the first one in New York City of that ancestry or that background to open a fencing business in New York City. So what I mean by fencing is a fencing that's basically two people like dueling with a sword, whether the sword is real or fake. So that kind of thing that you would see in some like kind of old fashioned movies where usually two men would like fight over a lady or over somebody's honor or something. So this was that kind of fencing, not putting up a protective thing around a house or anything. So it was that kind of fencing, and I was intrigued because I was like, that exists in New York City. Like, that's crazy, but I thought it was cool as well. So I decided to look him up, look up the business, I should say. I don't know if the business still exists because I actually forgot to. I'm always doing something, and I forgot to like look that up. So this was a long time ago. I was 16, like I said. I'm not 16 anymore, and I found it's in Manhattan. It was in Manhattan at that time. I don't remember if it was uptown, downtown, midtown. It was probably midtown, but I don't remember. And I lived in Brooklyn, so it was just a easy train ride for me to figure out where it was. I was able to find it. I don't remember if it was on a weekend or a weekday, but I went when I was not at school, and then I either went on a weekend or I went when I wasn't at school during the weekday. And what I ended up doing, I did not end up being able to participate the first day I went. Basically, it was like an orientation and then watching people who were more skilled in the class, youngsters that were more skilled in the class, do the actual demonstration of fencing. And I was just like, this is so cool. So they had the protective face gear. I don't remember. They probably had like shoulder pads and knee pads as well. And they had, yeah, so they had the protective face gear and then they were doing their demonstration. And I was like, this is so cool. Like, it's so old timey to me. And I thought it was old timey. So I watched them do the demonstration. They did not give us a rundown of like when we would actually be getting physically involved in like trying out the sport. So I did not recollect that at all. What I do remember as well is that there were a lot of kids there at that time, and there was a lot of kids watching, a lot of kids milling about, and it seemed like there were other like table games that were there, and people could hang around and play on the game tables if they weren't like ready to fence or practice or whatever. So I never actually got to do any hands-on. I ended up staying a little bit later and helping them like move and organize stuff. I don't think I did people. Anyway, I basically like helped them move some stuff around and organize some stuff. And I never went back. Like, that was my first and last time. I guess I ended up getting involved in other extracurricular activities. So I never went back, and I thought it was cool, but I guess I was not like impressed enough because when I learn new things, I like to be hands-on right away because that's how I learn the best. I can listen and observe and get instructions. That works up until like it let me actually try it out too. So I never went back, and it's probably because I didn't get to do the hands-on right away, and I didn't get any clarification on when the hands-on would start. And so I ended up getting involved in other stuff instead. So that's the first story. Second story is when I was 19. I was already in college at this point. I was living with my grandparents and my aunt in Queens, New York. But when I would have my breaks for college, I would come back to Queens, New York and stay with them. But whenever I was in college, I lived out of state in college. So I would go back to the state where I went to college. And that's what I would be doing. So anyway, I would go back to New York City, back to Queens, when I was on any of my school breaks, any of the spring breaks or winter break, summer break, you know, all those normal breaks, I would go back to New York City. So I believe this was the first year. Actually, I think, you know what? I actually think I did not do this right when I was in college. I think I actually moved with my grandparents and my aunt. I think, like, I think I moved with them like a few weeks before I was going to college. So, and then that was my bedroom all the years I was in college, even though I lived out of state. So, I think this was that last summer before I went to college. My aunt and I would hang out a lot, and we ended up going to an art expo exhibit outside in Brooklyn. It was mostly black artists, and it was paintings, sculptures, jewelry making, though, all those kinds of things. And not any, I don't remember that there was clothing there. I don't believe there was clothing there of any kind. And there wasn't any like video making, maybe photography, but no videos or anything. So it was outside. We ended up meeting this very nice lady who was a jeweler. She was about 20 years older than me, and my aunt's 8 years older than me. So she was probably like 20 years, 25 years older than me at the time. I was 19. And she made jewelry, and she and I ended up deciding that I was going to be her apprentice, and I was going to like learn to make jewelry from her and just see where that took me. But I was also going to be going to college shortly. So I do remember that I ended up going to her house at least once. I probably spoke on the phone with her a handful of times. And then we basically lost touch. But when I went to her house, she showed me some tools that she used. She liked to use like metal to, she liked to use like very, very thin metal to make necklaces or bracelets. So she would string whatever pieces of material she was going to put on the necklace onto a wire, onto a wire of whatever length she wanted it to be. And then she showed me how to like close it around the, let me show you. I can't believe I'm trying to describe it. I think I have something in here. This is a box that I got that has some of my old pieces. Okay. So she showed me with some of the tools she had how to like how to attach the metal to one side where you, there we go, and that fell to the floor. How to attach the metal to one side to start to close the necklace. And this piece, oh brother. Well, anyway, I'm missing the other side. So let me grab another one. Oh my goodness. Okay, here we go. So this has a double-sided, and it twists to undo it. So yeah, I had quite a few of these. So she taught me how to attach the metal to this piece and then to this piece, so then you could unscrew it and put on the necklace and then close it back up. So she taught me how to do that, but I ended up using those, I don't know if you ever seen it, but they have plastic pieces that are very similar, and you just have to tie them multiple times to get them not to detach. So I actually became very obsessed with making jewelry when I was in college. For like the first year to 2 years, I became really obsessed with it, and I ended up getting this for free at my college. I have a few pieces in here, just random pieces from when I was still making jewelry, but I like to use pieces that were so tiny, like, excuse me, I'm gonna grab that, but I like to use beads that were so tiny that I actually stopped liking to make them, because they were so tiny, not fun to pick up, and I did not have any like tools that made it easier to pick them up, and I just kind of fell out of love with it. But I would use Swarovski crystals, which were the ones that I used were bigger than the beads that I liked, and then I would get beads that were this big. These beads are nice, but I wouldn't use beads this big all the time. If I did consistently use beads this big, I would have liked doing jewelry making a lot more, but I did not use them this big. Like, they were usually tiny and I would make pieces, but it appears the pieces that I have made have all broken at some point, so I couldn't find a single one of the pieces that I made. But this piece, this, I did not make this. This I bought from a local artist. She has since moved somewhere else. But the beads I used to use were this big. They were basically that small, if not a little bit smaller. So I just got really tired of stringing beads like that. But yeah, this lady basically used the same technique that my old teacher used, and she looks like she used metal on this as well for the whole entire thing, and then did the attachments. So yeah, I love this necklace. Anyway, so yeah, I used to make jewelry. I never sold it. I think I like made pieces for people and like gave it away to them and just did that for a little while. But basically I fell out of love with it because the way I like to make jewelry, the pieces that I like to make jewelry with were just too small and too, they weren't fun anymore to make because I wanted to stick with a particular type of material, and that material was not so much fun to use. So yeah, I ended up stopping making them, but I did enjoy it while the time lasted, and I did fall out of touch with the lady I was supposed to apprentice with, do my apprenticeship with. But yeah, I ended up not even going into that field because I love art in many forms, but I mainly write. So yeah, I ended up falling out of making that. I have not made a piece of jewelry in a long time, and I think I should just for fun. So I'll probably have to go visit one of the craft stores to make something. But yeah, I haven't made it in a long time. I just thought it was fun to meet her, and my aunt was like really excited about the opportunity, but it didn't go anywhere, especially because I went to college like within a few weeks of meeting this lady. So yeah, that's the end of my story. I hope you all enjoyed it. Talk to you later and take care. Bye.